let's discuss about the psychodynamic approach to counseling. The psychodynamic theory is a psychological theory of Sigmund Freud from the year 1856 until 1939, and his followers applied to explain the origins of human behavior. Later on, we'll be able to identify what's the difference between psychodynamic and the psychoanalysis. The psychodynamic approach includes all the theories in psychology that see human functioning based upon the interaction of drives and forces within the person, particularly the unconscious and between the different structures of the personality. Let's all remember that in terms of psychodynamic approach, we'll be focusing the forces within the person, especially dun sa unconscious na part. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis was the original psychodynamic theory, but the psychodynamic approach as a whole includes all theories that were based on his ideas, like Carl Jung, Melanie Klein, Alfred Adler, and Freud, then Erik Erikson for the year 1950. The words psychodynamic and psychoanalytic talaga are often confused. Remember that Freud's theories were the psychoanalytic or the psychoanalysis, whereas yung term na psychodynamic, it refers to both his theories and of his followers. So, may paghahalo na psychodynamic na approach. In this approach to counseling, it represents one of the major traditions within contemporary counseling and psychotherapy. Even nowadays, sikat pa rin siya na type of approach once we provide counseling to our clients. Psychodynamic counseling places the great emphasis on the counselor's ability to use what happens in the immediate unfolding relationship between client and counselor to explore the types of feelings and the unfolding relationship between the client and counselor to explore the types of feelings and relationship dilemmas that have caused difficulties for the client in his or her everyday life. Ayun, pag sa psychodynamic approach kasi, which started by Sigmund Freud, gusto kasi na during the counseling, mas na-unfold talaga yung mga dilemmas tsaka difficulties in life. Bakit ba nag-start yung gantong approach ni Sigmund Freud hanggang sa nakuha na din ng ibang practitioners? Actually, yung story talaga, si Freud ay nag-spend ng years in Paris studying with the most eminent psychiatrist of the time, which is Charcot, who taught him the techniques of hypnosis. Dati kasi yun talaga yung pinakauna para sa kanila na effective way ng counseling or pag sa mga psychiatrists, yun yung ginagamit nila. And then, returning to dun sa place ni Freud, he began seeing patients who were emotionally disturbed. Tapos, marami sa kanila na naging patient niya ay nagsasuffer dun sa tinatawag nila na hysteria. Later on, he found out na yung hypnosis pala talaga was not particularly effective for him as a treatment technique and gradually evolved his own method. So imagine that one ay pag-practice or he was trained by well-known na psychiatrist, but that's a good idea na ibig sabihin hindi sa lahat ng pagkakataon yung specific approach sa isang lugar ay yun din yung effective na approach na pwede nang gamitin sa isang place. What he did, gumawa siya ng sariling approach which is called as free association. I'll be discussing it more deeply dun sa mga next na slides. It consisted getting the patients to lie down in a relaxed position or minsan sa couch just to say whatever comes to mind. The stream of consciousness material that emerged from his procedure often included strong emotions, yung mga deeply buried memories, and childhood sexual experiences. Yun yung sa focus talaga ng psychodynamic approach. Hinahayaan mo yung client mo to express and then later find out na i-guide mo siya kung ano ba talaga yung pinaka-reason or root cause ng mga difficulties niya sa life. Since dito kasi sa psychodynamic approach, yung sinabi ko kanina, it will be focusing sa unconscious mind. So what's with the unconscious mind? Bakit ba talaga siya yung nasa pinaka mataas na percentage? Imagine that one dito sa iceberg wherein heard it, dito taas kung ano lang nakikita, that's the conscious mind. But then, look at the unconscious part, halos 75% or siya yung may pinakamalaking percentage. The same as what, di ba sa Titanic na movie, you could really see guys, pag sa iceberg, di natin nakikita, but pero dun sa ilalim, sobrang ano pala siya, napaka um, deadly. So, the same as what will happen to every person. Kung makikita natin yung client natin, the conscious mind might be okay, pero the unconscious part pala, masyadong delikado na or nasa suicidal part na pala yung ating client. And bakit ba? Ano bang meron dito sa unconscious na to? The conscious is the small amount of mental activity we know about. Imagine that one. Conscious, that's what we know, what we are doing. Tapos, meron dito sa banda na preconscious, the things we could be aware of if we wanted or tried. So, minsan, we try to forget things, we try to deny that it exists. So, nandun yun sa preconscious. So, dito kasi sa preconscious, ito yung mga memories, yung mga stored na knowledge, and then the unconscious part. Ayan, bakit pa siya deadly or napaka-dangerous? These are the things we are unaware of and cannot become aware of. These are the fears that we have, the unacceptable sexual desires, the violent motives, irrational wishes, yung mga immoral urges natin, selfish needs, the shameful experiences, and even andun sa unconscious mind ang ating mga traumatic experiences. Imagine that one kung alam mo yun, ganun pala talaga kalawak yung isang mind ng isang tao. Kaya, minsan nasasabi nila na 10% pa lang ng mind mo ang nagagamit. Kasi, yung sa unconscious mind, you might be denying that it exists. Or kasi, pag unconscious, we are not really aware that it existed. Kaya, dito sa psychodynamic approach na to, hinahayaan yung client na ma-realize or ilabas niya yung mga unconscious mind. Kaya maganda yung ginamit ng Sigmund Freud, which is the free association. Relax lang yung client, just tell whatever he or she needed to say. Diba? Ito yung mga aims ng psychodynamic counseling, and we could use it in the future. It helps the client to achieve insight and understanding around the reasons for their problems, because sometimes we are acting or doing things that we don't really know what's the reason behind. Bakit ba, minsan diba, may ganun tayong moment, bakit ba ako ganito? Ano ba yan? Alam ko naman sa sarili ko na hindi dapat gawin. Consciously, we know the thoughts or the perceptions that we have to do. I keep on repeating doing these things. Bakit ba kailangan? Example na dyan yung mga addictions natin in life. We are parang iniiwasan natin, pero bakit parang hinihila tayo pabalik? Sa psychology na part talaga, there's an explanation of it. And that's because of the sa unconscious. Kaya dito, isa yun sa aim talaga ng psychodynamic counseling. And it enable also the process to take place. The counselor needs to be able to offer the client an environment that is sufficiently secure and consistent to permit safe expression of painful or shameful fantasies and impulses. And I know that you already have this knowledge or you know the process already on how are we going to. Kaya sana maalala nyo at mas ma-integrate natin to sa next na part na to sa counseling para in the future natin, before tayo mag-finals, ay pag nag-open up yung client nyo or something like this, you know how to handle it. We have the shameful fantasies and impulses, the same as the different cases na pinag-aralan natin last time that you reported. So, ganun lang din, parang sa counseling na part. It always actually happen, di ba? Na pag nag-open up talaga yung client natin, there are things that mangyayari talaga. Kaya dapat i-secure natin sila at dapat we should permit safe na expression para ma-express nila yung painful nila or mga traumatic experiences. Kasi same as the cases we had studied, may iba't ibang client talaga, mga secretive, ayaw magsabi, ayaw magkwento, kasi it could be about the issues that they had with the counselor, ayaw nilang, or psychiatrist, ayaw nilang mag-open up. So we know the stages already and how to. I hope that you remember it. And then another thing, si Freud kasi convinced that repressed sexual wishes and memories lay at the root of the patient's problems. Later generations of practitioners and theorists have developed a more social, relationship-oriented approach. The psychodynamic methods have been applied to understanding and treating a wide range of problems and have been adapted to a variety of ways of working, included na yung grief therapy, the group therapy, the marital or couples counseling. O, 'di ba? Sikat pa rin talaga siya na type of approach dito kay Freud. Although sobrang dami ding cons or marami ding tumutulig sa dito sa work ni Freud, but then there's a part of it that we could really still use kasi effective din siya. Pero depende din talaga sa client, anong personality ng type na meron tayo. Ito kasi si Freud, he wanted, sa type niya kasi ng approach, gusto niya na maging conscious yung client niya about the unconscious things that happened sa kanya sa mind. Lalong-lalo na yung mga deeply buried memories and childhood sexual experiences. Kasi, para sa kanya kasi yung mga repressed na sexual wishes. Example dito sa sinasabi kasi ni Freud, guys, is kung paano nakaka-apekto yung mga childhood experiences is yung sa pati problems, 'di ba? Di doon sa pati na problem, sometimes kung during that time hindi na trained well yung bata, lalaki siyang magulo sa bahay or madumi or somewhat like that. That's what the reason of the effects. But later on, we'll be talking about it or discussing about it more. The main distinctive features of the psychodynamic approach are this. Daan tatlong to. I will include this in the exam. The first is the assumption that the client's difficulties have their ultimate origins in the childhood. Ito yung sinasabi ko. Kaya isa sa best feature na meron tong approach na to. Freud said that in the free association situation, many of his patients na remembering unpleasant or fearful sexual experiences in the childhood. And moreover, the act of telling someone else about these experiences was therapeutic. So, ibig sabihin, nakikitaan niya na may mga positive effect na nangyari. So, therapeutic siya. And then, Freud could not believe that this childhood sexual traumas had actually happened in reality. Although today, we might disagree, diba? And made sense of this phenomenon by suggesting that what had really happened had its roots in the child's own sexual needs. So, ibig sabihin talaga, but sinasabi kasi nila, meron ding mga sexual experiences din to during his childhood years, si Freud. But the way he actually said it, diba, yung term na he could not believe that this childhood sexual traumas had actually happened in reality, 'di ba? Siguro kahit siya as a psychologist or psychiatrist, meron siya unconscious behind, 'di ba, na nakatago din. So same as us, we are not really that perfect once we provide counseling or therapies to our clients. It doesn't mean that we don't have issues on our own. Of course, we also have it. And dito din even sa Freud, meron din yan siya. Freud suggests, for example, na in a similar type of pattern for the anal stage, kung yung child's potty training, yung sasabi kanina, is too rigid and harsh, masyadong harsh tayo, pinapalo yung bata, or masyado tayong madisiplinado, sobra-sobra naman, it will learn that it must never allow itself to make a mess. Yung huwag kang yung parang na-train yung bata na takot na tuloy siya na maging mess, and may grow up finding it difficult to express emotions and with obsessional need to keep everything in its proper place. Yung sinasabing obsessive compulsive na type of na yung ginagawa. And if the potty training naman is too permissive, hinahayaan mo lang yung bata, yung parang walang disiplina, ang naging effect naman, the child may grow up with the capacity to keep things in order, or ito pala yung pag permissive pala, you are properly guiding that kid, mas maganda yung magiging effect. Pero pag sobra-sobra, ayan, pangit naman talaga pag sobra din, di ba? Then, next is the assumption that the client may not be consciously aware of the true motives or impulses behind his or her actions, since God did not merely suggest that childhood experiences influences adult personality. He suggested then na yung influences occurred in a particular way through the operation of the unconscious mind. Kaya yung sa unconscious mind talaga, by Freud, is a part the life of a person that was outside direct awareness. Yun yung sa iceberg training na pinakita ko, diba? Freud saw the human mind as divided into three regions kasi. They have the ego and the superego. I know that you are so familiar with it. The use in counseling and therapy of interpretation of the transference na relationship. Kasi in the work of psychoanalysis kasi, it is about to strengthen the ego. Kaya 'di ba dito sa true motives talaga siya is the impulses of his actions. Now, what's with the transference? Pag sinabi ko about transference, guys, it's something that the client could freely express. So I have it here, an example ng transference. We have here the mother figure. Tapos me, for example, ikaw yung client. I really wanted to come in next week. I bet she'll think I'm too needy. Parang mararamdaman nung, bawa ako, client ako, and then I have issues with my mother or my father, that I have time for this. Yung ganun, yung lumaki kang ganun yung personality na meron yung nakapaligid sa'yo. So, yung transference, ito yung natatransfer yung feelings from one person to the therapist. It describes a situation kasi where yung feelings, desires, and expectation of one person are redirected and applied to another person. Yun yung transference that they actually refer as an therapeutic setting. Maganda talaga siya pag nasa therapeutic setting like the therapist, diba? Kasi alam mo, nakakatulong yun. You will be guided well. Pero if you will do transference to someone na you're not in a therapeutic settings, hindi ka din maintindihan, nagkakabanggaan kayo ng mga issues mo sa isa't isa. Kaya, ayun, that would really cause yung mga divorce or mga nagkakaroon ng kaaway or mga issues in life. And, kaya dito kay, sinasabi ni Sigmund Freud, or dito sa approach ng psychodynamic, so ito naman based din kay Freud, hinaya nilang mag-express in a therapeutic setting para matulungan talaga siya. And the therapeutic techniques used in psychoanalysis kasi, the Freudian or psychodynamic theory described in the previous section, emerge out of the work of Freud talaga, and others on helping people with emotional problems. And many aspects of the theory have therefore been applied to the question of how to facilitate the therapeutic change in clients or the patients. And the reason kasi for this is that counselor is attempting to present himself or herself as a blank screen in which the client may project his or her fantasies or deeply held assumptions about close relationship. Kaya diba pag isa talaga sa skills or ability na meron dapat or values na meron dapat yung counselor sa therapist ay you should be mature enough na hindi mo hayaang kainin ka ng client mo, ikaw pa yung mas nagiging emotional. Remember, pag ito yung gagamitin niyo na approach ka, psychodynamic, you presenting yourself as a blank screen. Hinahayaan mo lang yung client mo na mag-express sa sarili niya, huwag kang mag-add ng sarili mong issues. Kaya pag may problema sa bahay or you have problems on your heart, just set it aside and focus dun sa client mo. The therapist expects kasi na yung therapy continues then over weeks or months, and then the feelings clients hold toward him or her will be similar na to the feelings they had towards significant, yung like authority figures, way with their own mother or child, then she could reproduce his behavior with her therapist. Kaya minsan, isa to sa nagiging delikado talaga pag halimbawa nasa transference na level tas babalik yung client mo. Like in the picture, mafe-feel ng client na wala baka sobrang needy na ako. Ibig sabihin, it's working. Nata-transfer na nung client yung niya, yung feelings niya. I had this experience before actually na I open up with someone na who counseled me. Bigyan ko ng counseling, and then later part na I trusted it. I trusted that counselor or yung nagka-counsel nga sa akin. Madre naman kasi siya. Later on, I found out na ganun pala talaga yan. You will be having a transference stage na natatakot ka na, or baka sabihin nito, I feel needy or something like I might take so much time from her. So, nandun na yung mga worries. But you as a counselor, dapat po talaga siyang i-gain mo yung trust. And dapat isi-secure mo din yung feelings niya na we have to continue it kasi ito yung nakakatulong sa'yo. And being neutral talaga and detached, the therapist ensures that the feelings the client has towards him or her are not caused by anything the therapist has done, but as a result of the client projecting dun sa image of his or her own mother, not dun sa therapist. Baka ikaw, bakit kayo galit na to yung client sa akin na to? Parang ayaw ko na nga, parang ikaw din nasi-stress ka nung kulang ko. But we don't really know na pag gantong approach kasi, di natin may iwasan. Meron talaga transference. Di in a therapeutic setting, kaya dapat magaling ka once you use this type of approach. And kay Freud kasi, he used the phrase, sikat siya dito, where it was, let ego be. Now, what does it mean? It actually summarizes his aims as a psychologist. In other words, rather than being driven by unconscious forces and impulses, people after therapy will be more rational, more aware of their inner emotional life, and more able to control these feelings in an appropriate manner. Doon nagsimula talaga yung psychodynamic type of approach. I want this, then, pag sa ego, let's work on it. Dapat conscious ka or dapat alam mo, you could have your rational way of thinking while you were doing it. And then, kasi, ang first, sabi nga nila, ang first step daw talaga in terms of changing your behavior is about being aware of what you're doing. Kasi if you're not really aware of what you're doing or what you're thinking, then wala talaga makakatulong sa'yo. Kaya itong approach talaga na to, kung yung client mo ay masyadong, pwede to siya pag yung client mo ay masyadong hindi expressive or hindi niya alam talaga kung anong nangyayari sa buhay na hindi niya ma-identify what's the reason behind why he or she acted that way, then this approach is a good one. Okay? Where it was, let ego be. At hayaan natin sila maging conscious dun sa part na yun. Kasi yung key then in psychoanalysis is the achievement of insight into the true nature of one's problem, their childhood origins. But genuine insight is not merely an intellectual exercise. When the person truly understands, he or she will experience a release of the emotional tension associated with the repressed or buried memories. Freud used the term catharsis to describe this emotional release. Yeah, that's really good, guys, na once na ma-express mo yung mga repressed and buried memories mo. But you could express it in a different way, sometimes in writing or by talking to someone. That's something the catharsis. Though, what is this really all about? Once we have this term, it refers talaga the expression of your feelings, especially when you're suppressing your anger or other negative feelings. Kasi di ba, kaya sinasabi nila pag tahimik daw, pero pag magalit yan, yun sila yung pinaka nakakatakot daw. Kasi they are suppressing their feelings eh. But doing this, ang kinakatakutan talaga niya is gantong stage, yung tinatawag na catharsis. Kasi pag na-express niya lahat nung sinusuppress niya na anger, tas negative feelings, sobrang lala nun. However, yung term talaga na to was first used in psychology, si Freud talaga. But originally dates back at least to ancient Greece. Doon sa mga ancient Greece pa talaga nag-start yung term na to. Pero si Sigmund Freud yung una. Okay? Tandaan natin yan. Si Sigmund Freud yung nauna sa field ng psychology in history. It's in a number of therapeutic techniques or strategies used in psychoanalytic or psychodynamic therapy kasi. The first one is systematic use of the relationship between the counselor and the client. Next is identifying, analyzing the resistance and defenses. Kasi pag relationship talaga, yun yung first, diba, pag nagka-counseling, you have to develop to gain the trust of the client. And second is, i-analyze mo ano yung resistance niya and defenses. Later on the next second part of the video na discussion natin, i-discuss ko yung mga defenses na meron yung isang tao. And then, the free association then, the third part, saying whatever comes to mind. Hinayaan mo lang yung client mo to say anything you want. Working on dreams and fantasies. You have to ask them. Then, you'll provide the interpretation. And then, the other miscellaneous techniques kung hindi effective yung mga nasa taas. Or, kahit effective na siya, if you want to check more reasons or to really make sure na tama yung interpretation mo, you could use this miscellaneous techniques. Now, let's start with the first one, yung systemic use. In this way, yung counselor or the therapist tend to behave towards your client in neutral manner. Ito yung sinasabi ko sa kanya na you will be presenting as a blank screen. It is unusual for psychoanalytically trained counselor to share much of their own feelings or own lives with their clients. So, ito yung approach, na hindi tayo masyadong sasalita. We are just being to a neutral manner na hayaan mo yung client mo na ma-express ng sarili niyang feelings. And then, as the clients talk about his or her feelings or problems, the therapist may notice that he or she is avoiding, distorting, or defending against certain feelings or insights. Napapansin mo yun, pag nagkukwento siya, may mga resistance na. And Freud saw it as important to understand the source of such resistance and would draw the patient's attention to it if it's happened persistently. So, lalo na pag nabanggit ulit ka ng about this term. What's with this? Ano bang meron? You feel that way. Diba? And then, we have the association or saying whatever comes to mind. Ito yung normal na ginagawa natin. The intention is to help the person to talk about himself or herself in a fashion that is less likely to be influenced by defense mechanism. So, minsan kasi may mga defense mechanism tayo, may mga denial stage, or we are suppressing it, but we'll be discussing it more mamaya. And it is though in free association with the person's truth can slip out. Kasi minsan, diba, pag nagkukwento, and then, out of nowhere, may bigla tayo nabanggit, so it should not be the thing. Yun yung tinatawag na Freudian slip. So, ito yung sumisikat na picture pag si Freud, yung Freudian slip na minsan nababanggit tayo, diba? For example, here, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I mean bird flu strategy, not bird brain strategy. Diba? Tapos nagalit na yung president kasi kahit even sa jokes, diba, na sinasabi natin, those jokes are half meant. Dito yung nag-start kasi dahil sa Freudian slip na yan. Minsan nababanggit tayo na bagay na hindi natin napapansin. Kasi, for example, a student seeing a counselor to help study problems who then persistently blames tutor for his difficulties. May mga biniblame natin kung anong mga nangyayari natin sa buhay. Diba? Ito yung we're pointing fingers to others. It's probably avoiding his own feelings of inadequacy or dependency. Lalo na pag feeling mo, masyadong dependent ka na sa taong yan, or alam mo sa sarili mo, hindi mo talaga kaya on your own. Kaya minsan, you're having that type of resistance. You're persistently blaming the tutor. Sometimes it also happen, lalo na sa school, pag yung student ay may issues dun sa teacher. Minsan, nagagalit yung student. Ano ba yan? Nakakainis yung teacher na yan? Kasi, without knowing that what we're doing is actually a defense mechanism. We might just blaming the teacher kasi feeling natin masyado tayong dependent or hindi mo masyado makukuha yung mga activities or hindi mo na makukuha yung standard na binibigay ng teacher mo. So, that's how it works. And then, but of course, dun yun sa psychodynamic approach. Pero sa ibang approach, it could be problem din na meron yung teacher or the student. Or more on emotional or sa physical na problems. And then and the third part is the working on dreams and fantasies. Freud saw the dream as a royal road to the unconscious and encouraged his students to tell him about their dreams. Again, his purpose talaga is to examine yung material that comes from deeper, less defended level of the individual's personality. Kasi pag dreams and fantasies, pag ikaw yung client, parang okay, you're free to share talaga what you're dreaming about. Kaya parang napapansin ni Freud, kasi nandun yung sa unconscious that person might not know that it could be connected to his or her life na pinaka-reason or deep cause talaga ng mga behavior na pinapakita niya. And imagine that once si Sigmund Freud talaga created a book, The Interpretations of Dreams. And I actually studied or read also about it. Binasa ko din. And, ayun, parang pag Freud talaga, it's more on sexual feelings talaga. Yung tipong nakapanaginip ka ng tubig or you walk on it. Parang, yun, sexual desires or mga hidden immoral desires. Yun yung pag sa interpretation. And unconscious thoughts and feelings kasi para sa kanya could be represent symbolically sa dream, like the impulsive situation in dreamers' waking life, tapos other products of the imagination. For example, yung mga dreams or images na palit-ulit nila nakikita, diba? Kaya sabi ko sa inyo, pag tubig talaga, it's more on sexual, pag kay Freud na interpretation. A psychoanalytic counselor or therapist will use the process described above, yung sa transference, sa dream, pre-association, to generate material for interpretation. But I do love this approach kasi hindi lang talaga isang process lang ginagawa. But they really wanted to make sure na nai-interpret nila from the transference, sa pre-association, and even dun sa dreams na interpret nila to make sure that they're right. The therapist is attempting to help clients to understand the regions of their problem and thereby gain more control over them and more freedom to behave differently. And we can also use minsan yung sinasabi ko na minsan kulang pa yun sa transference, sa pinapakita, sa dreams, sa pre-association. We can even use, kaya maganda din yung approach na to, yung mga techniques. What with the miscellaneous techniques? When working with children as the clients, it is unrealistic to expect them to be able to put their inner conflicts into words. I have this client talaga na bata in providing counseling. Ito yung sinasabi ko, lalo na pag bata is masyadong secretive. Even if you ask specific questions, nahayaan mo sila magkwento, ayaw. Hirap na hirap ako. Siguro mga ilang days or ilang mga sessions pa, hindi pa rin. But I'll be doing this approach talaga kaso nagka-pandemic lang kaya hindi ko pa talaga siya natuloy. And we could use this, yung child analysts use toys and play to allow the child to externalize his or her fears and worries. Kasi ngayong sa stage ko kasi for this, yung pagbibigay ko ng counseling sa bata, I'm gaining the trust muna and make this child comfortable with me. So, dito na ako sa stage na to wherein I'll be using different techniques para lang matulungan siya. And then, some therapies working adults also find it helpful to use naman expressive techniques such as art, sculpture, and poetry. So, pag matatanda na yung mga client mo, hayaan na sila magsulat, mag-drawing, or mag-express through art. Doon mo makikita na ganito yung personality niya. Ganito pala talaga siya. And once you have his or her own work, I see that this art shows that sobrang dark. is it something that you have in life, your life parang hayaan mo siya mag-express. Hanggang sa, ay, oo nga no, yung unconscious will be part of the conscious. So, hayaan mo siya mag-express. And then the other is the thematic apperception test, or TAT, yung you will let them describe an ambiguous type of picture or painting. Ay na, hayaan mo siya mag-describe. Nung ako, during my graduate studies, kasi pinag-aralan din namin to sa thematic apperception test, we do it sa klase namin, during the discussion. And then, basta nasabi nung professor ko dati, na based on my way of describing it kasi is more on negative, so ibig sabihin, I'm having that certain issues on my own. Without even knowing na, yung pinapagawa niya pala is a type of psychodynamic approach. But it doesn't mean talaga na most of the time magiging effective siya pag, yun, depende talaga sa client mo. Kasi minsan, lalabas doon na, mostly yun naman nakikita ng ibang tao di ba? Pero it doesn't mean, kasi minsan, bawa, ako, ganun, lumabas negative, I might be having my unconscious problems deep inside of me. Pero yung lang kasi doon, paano matatanggap ng client mo if diretsahan mo silang mag-interpret ng isang painting on their own, diba? Kasi they have their own artist. Pero lalabas at lalabas din talaga pag yung technique na to. Kasi pag sa psychodynamic approach, remember, it's more on the unconscious. We're focusing within dun sa taong yan. Kasi kung anong lalabas sa kanya, then it would be helpful sa ganitong klaseng approach kasi ni-interpret natin. Okay? That's all for today about the psychodynamic approach to counseling. I hope that in the future, you could also use it once you provide counseling to your client, if it's more on focusing within the person. And we'll be talking on the second part of this video about the defense mechanism that the person could have para magamit natin siya during the process, diba? After having this good relationship already, naging comfortable na yung client mo, and now, i-check natin kung ano yung mga resistance niya or mga defense mechanism para tuloy-tuloy na yung pagka-counsel, and we could do interpretation na or even use other miscellaneous techniques. That's all.